Leo, listen closely. God is about to flip your finances overnight, and whether you believe it or not, heaven's vault is already humming. Have you ever felt deep in your gut that something massive was about to change, but you couldn't explain why? Like your life was circling a turning point, but no one else could see it? That's not coincidence. That's calling. And if you found yourself here, right now, watching this video, it's because your spirit answered that call before your mind even caught up. Leo, you are not here by accident. You didn't stumble onto this message by luck or a random click. No. You're here because your heart, your frequency has been sending out signals for help, for guidance, for breakthrough. And heaven has been listening. Right now, astrologically speaking, everything is lining up in your favor. A new moon is activating your second house, the area that rules money, values, and worth. Venus, the planet of blessings and attraction, is aligning with the sun, your ruler. Translation: a window is opening. A divine override is being prepared. And that shift could change your life in one night. But let's get real for a second. This isn't about hype. You've been through too much to fall for spiritual fluff. You've prayed when no one saw. You've held it together when you wanted to break. You've chosen silence over revenge, growth over shortcuts, and compassion over proving a point. And now, for the first time in a long time, heaven is saying, you're ready. This isn't about being good enough. This is about being stable enough to carry what's coming. The blessing you've been waiting for isn't just about money, it's about trust. And when God flips your finances overnight, it won't feel like luck. It will feel like alignment. Like the lock finally clicking open because your soul grew into the key. So take a breath. Take it all in. This is a holy moment. And I'm not here to entertain you, I am here to hand you the confirmation your spirit has been craving. Don't be surprised if tears come. Or if memories resurface. That's your system making room for a new reality. Because when you shift overnight, your body, your mind, your habits, they have to stretch to meet the new level. And the more grounded you are in this moment, the more grace you'll carry forward. Now, before we dive deeper into this message, let me say this. Thank you. Not just for watching, but for showing up, for being open, for being willing to believe that your best days aren't behind you. Every comment, every like, every subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness fuels this space. You're not just supporting a channel, you're expanding a circle of healing that reaches further than you think. So please, if you feel this message speaking directly to you, leave a comment below and say, I'm ready for my overnight financial shift. It's not just words, it's an agreement with the energy moving through your life right now. And if you're a Leo like me, write your name and your sign so I can recognize the tribe that's rising. Stay with me until the end. What we're about to uncover in the next few minutes might just be the most important confirmation you've received this year. Let's begin. Leo, you've heard it before, your heart knows. But what does that really mean when it comes to money, to breakthrough, to finally stepping into a life where the struggle doesn't steal your peace anymore? This is where things get real. Because the truth is, heaven may be holding one key to your next chapter, but the second key? That one's been forming inside you this whole time. And that's not poetic fluff. It's the honest blueprint of transformation. We often think that blessings arrive out of the blue. But nothing in the cosmos moves without alignment. Like a vault that only opens when two keys turn at once, one divine, one human. Your breakthrough isn't waiting for more luck or a better market or someone else to believe in you. It's waiting for you to become internally calibrated enough to hold it. And that calibration? It starts in the heart. The heart isn't just a feeling center, it's your vibrational signature. The energy you carry when no one is watching. It's built through the quiet decisions no one applauds. Every time you chose patience over panic. Every time you walked away from something that looked shiny but didn't feel right. Every time you forgave someone and kept it private. These weren't just good moral moments. They were upgrades to your frequency signal sent out into the field saying, I'm no longer chasing. I'm ready to carry. In the language of tarot, this is the Hierophant's path, learning through sacred discipline, through trusting divine timing, not forcing the door open, but preparing the soul to walk through it with authority when it does. And in numerology, the number 2 represents divine union. Not just romantic union, but the deeper partnership between your will and a higher wisdom. This is where the law of attraction stops being just a trendy phrase and becomes embodied truth. The blessing comes when you're no longer trying to manipulate the outcome, but instead, becoming the version of yourself who naturally magnetizes it. You see, the heart is not weak. It's not naive. It's not something to get out of the way when you're trying to be strategic. It's the exact opposite. In high-level energetic work, the heart is the access point to everything. If your heart isn't in alignment, if it's weighed down with bitterness, urgency, or need for validation, any blessing you receive will feel overwhelming, or worse, it will slip through your fingers. This is why the internal work matters more than ever now. Especially for Leo, a sign that naturally shines and leads but often feels the pressure to perform. You were never meant to perform to be loved. You were meant to become so rooted in your own sacred power that even if no one claps, you still keep going. That's when heaven recognizes the frequency. That's when the second key clicks. And what happens then is subtle but unmistakable. The door doesn't swing open with noise. It glides, quietly, as if it's been waiting for you all along. Because it has. Not for the version of you that's hustling for approval, but for the version of you that has learned the language of alignment. The version that understands that money, status, and success aren't decorations, theory tools. And they only land safely when the soul is stable. So if you've been wondering why it hasn't happened yet, why the door hasn't opened, ask yourself, is your heart truly steady enough to hold it? That's not a judgment. That's a reflection. And the beautiful thing is, once you are, nothing and no one can keep it from you. Not even timing. Not even people who didn't believe in you. If you're feeling that, know if your spirit knows you've been quietly doing the work, comment below. I am the second key. Let it be your declaration. Not to impress anyone, but to anchor the truth that your alignment is already unlocking something powerful. Stay with me. We're just getting started. People often think abundance comes like a jackpot, loud, sudden, life-altering in an instant. And yes, sometimes it does arrive quickly. But the truth most don't talk about is that when real, lasting financial change arrives, it comes as a form of trust, not luck. That's what makes this moment so important for you. Because Leo, what's shifting in your life isn't a random stroke of good fortune. It's a handover. A transfer of responsibility. A sacred assignment. See, from the outside, people will only see the outcome. They'll notice when the money shows up, when the lifestyle changes, when doors begin to open. But they won't see the nights you didn't give up. The mornings you chose gratitude even when things didn't add up. They won't know how many times you sat in silence, trying to hold your faith together while your world felt like it was falling apart. But you know. And more importantly, the universe has been paying attention. In astrology, this moment is deeply supported by a trine between your Sun, the core of who you are, and expansive Jupiter, the planet of wisdom and blessing. It's a sign that you're not just attracting wealth, but you're being asked to steward it. Not for show. Not for status. But for purpose. The kind of wealth that shows up when you're ready to use it for something beyond yourself. This is where real self-growth happens. Because it's one thing to receive a blessing. It's another thing to carry it with integrity. And you, Leo, you've been growing into someone who can. That's the difference between being rewarded and being entrusted. A reward feels like a finish line. An entrustment? That's the beginning of a much deeper mission. You may have noticed lately that you're more intentional with your thoughts. More focused on the long game. You're not as reactive, and you're learning to respond with clarity, not panic. That's not random maturity, that's alignment. That's your system syncing with the frequency of leadership, not just survival. And whether you realize it or not, that internal shift is exactly what opens the door to sustainable external change. In numerology, the number 6 represents responsibility to community, healing through service, and the kind of abundance that creates safety for others, not just security for yourself. So yes, this new level of financial flow coming your way will benefit you, but it's also designed to flow through you. You are being asked to become a channel, not just a collector. That might feel heavy at first. Like a lot of pressure. But it's actually a compliment to your soul. Because the universe doesn't trust everyone with influence. You've earned this by how you've carried yourself when no one was clapping. The way you chose humility instead of seeking validation. The way you stayed grounded even when it felt like nothing was moving forward. So if you've been asking, why is this happening now, this is your answer. It's not about being finally good enough. It's that you've become strong enough not to be broken by the blessing. You won't waste it. You won't lose yourself in it. And that kind of trust? That's rare. That's powerful. And that's exactly why this next chapter isn't just about what you're going to receive, it's about what you're now able to hold. If you feel that this message speaks directly to you, take a moment to claim it. Comment below, I am ready to carry the blessing with purpose. Don't say it for me. Say it for yourself. You've already done the hard part, now it's time to walk into what's been waiting for you. Stay with me. What comes next is even deeper. Let's be honest, waiting seasons can feel brutal. Especially when you've done the work, kept the faith, and still nothing moves. Days blend into weeks. Your inbox stays quiet. The phone doesn't ring. And inside, there's this quiet question that builds, even if you don't say it out loud, did life pass me by? But I want to offer a different lens. What if this wasn't punishment? What if the silence wasn't abandonment, but protection? Sometimes, the universe pulls you into pause not because you're not ready to receive, but because the world isn't ready to receive you properly. There's a difference. Especially for Leo, a sign wired to lead, to shine, to take the mic when everyone else is unsure. That energy is powerful, magnetic, and if released at the wrong time, it can attract the wrong audience, or worse, the wrong alliances. That's why these invisible seasons are actually sacred. They strip away the noise. They refine your motives. And yes, they can feel lonely, but they're not empty. They're formative. From an astrological view, Mercury retrograde is often misunderstood as chaos. But beneath the surface, it's an audit. It asks, what are you chasing? Who are you trying to prove something to? Are you clear or just moving fast? These aren't easy questions. But they're necessary ones. Because when the energy finally moves forward again, your answer to those questions determines not just what opens but what stays open. Tarot echoes this process through the Hermit. It's the archetype of sacred withdrawal. Not isolation for the sake of fear but retreat for the sake of clarity. The Hermit walks alone, not because they've been cast out, but because they're following a light only they can see. That's what your delay might actually be, not a detour, but a divine slowdown, guiding you inward, toward your own voice, not the voices of the crowd. In self-help and trauma healing work, there's a well-documented pattern that comes after breakdown and before breakthrough. It's the space where nothing seems to make sense yet but things are quietly recalibrating. You may be grieving old expectations. Unlearning patterns you didn't know were driving you. Learning to self-source confidence without performance. And as uncomfortable as that is, it's essential. Because when the next level of visibility, responsibility, and blessing comes, you won't have time to recenter. You'll have to already be rooted. That's why this season asked you to go deeper, not louder. It wasn't about proving your worth. It was about remembering it, without needing applause to validate it. The truth is, people may not understand why you're so still right now. Why you're not forcing results. Why you're not chasing what you used to. But you know. Deep down, you know. Something in you is being rearranged, not rushed. So if you felt overlooked, misunderstood, or stuck, I want you to take a breath and ask yourself a better question. Not, why is this happening to me, but, what might this be sparing me from? Because so often, the delay is the doorway to something more aligned, more sustainable, more you. And if any part of you resonates with that, if you're in the thick of the quiet right now, I invite you to share your experience below. Just write, I'm learning in the silence. Let it be a witness to yourself, that even in the waiting, even in what looks like a stall, your spirit is still in motion. You're not behind. You're being positioned. And soon, when the doors swing open, you'll be glad you waited. You can usually feel it before you fully understand it. Something looks right on paper. It sounds good when spoken, maybe it even sparkles with the right words and timing. But deep down, something tugs at your spirit. Something feels off. And that small inner whisper, the one you've been learning to trust, is not doubt, it's discernment. Especially now, when doors start opening and momentum picks up, not every opportunity that appears is meant to be walked through. Some doors are not answers theory, distractions dressed up as destiny. This is the part of the journey most people don't prepare for. After seasons of silence, when doors finally begin to creak open, there's this rush of excitement, a subtle desperation to say yes. Especially for someone like Leo, who's been patient, who's been invisible for longer than they wanted to be. When the spotlight returns, it can be tempting to jump at the first chance that looks like forward motion. But here's the thing, the faster your energy rises, the more tempting the counterfeits become. In the tarot, this energy is echoed by the devil card, not in the literal sense of evil, but in the psychological sense of bondage, illusion, and temptation that preys on your unmet needs. These are the deals that make you feel valuable but cost you your peace. The offers that flatter your ego but leave your intuition restless. The relationships that look aligned on the outside but slowly drain your sense of purpose. Astrologically, this confusion is amplified when the moon squares Neptune. Your perception may feel foggy, your emotions heightened, and your logic strangely muted. In those moments, decisions made in haste often lead to regret. That's why clarity in the heart is more important than clarity on paper. Because no matter how promising something appears, if it requires you to shrink, twist, or compromise what you know to be true, you already have your answer. The irony is, people often miss their real blessings not because they weren't ready, but because they settled for a lesser version of it too soon. They accepted the imitation because it came first, or because it was louder. And in doing so, they closed the door on what was quietly, steadily making its way to them. But you're not here to repeat that cycle. You've already outgrown the need to say yes out of fear. Fear of missing out. Fear of disappointing someone. Fear of being left behind. You've learned that peace is your guide, not pressure. That the right things come in alignment, not anxiety. In self-growth work, especially in trauma recovery, we talk about learning to distinguish safety from familiarity. Sometimes the most dangerous thing is what feels familiar, especially if you've spent years normalizing dysfunction. This is why staying grounded in your own truth is everything. Because opportunities are going to show up. But not all of them will match the life you're building now. So when that moment comes, and it will, when you're handed a contract, a message, an invitation that looks like everything you asked for but doesn't feel quite right, don't rush. Don't explain it away. Pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, do I feel calm? Not excited. Not flattered. Calm. Peace is the data point. If your peace disappears when the pen is in your hand, the answer is no. And if you've ever experienced that, if you've walked away from something that made sense, but didn't sit right, I want you to share it. Just drop a line below. I've learned to trust my peace. Your story might save someone else from saying yes to a door they were never meant to walk through. Keep listening. Keep choosing alignment over urgency. And remember, what's real doesn't rush you. It meets you where you're steady. There comes a moment, quiet, almost sacred, when you realize that wealth was never meant to be the finish line. It was always meant to be a tool. Not for decoration. Not to prove anything to the world. But to build. To heal. To uplift. And if you're feeling the shift now, that tug that says, I'm not just receiving for me, then you're standing right in the middle of that moment. This is where the deeper assignment begins. Real wealth, the kind that lasts, the kind that doesn't leave you empty when you get it, has very little to do with numbers. It's about energy, purpose, intention. And for Leo, a sign ruled by the sun itself, the assignment has always been about illumination. But not in the way people think. Not about being the brightest in the room. It's about being the steady fire others can warm their hands by. It's about being the light when someone else's path has gone dark. You see, the money that's coming, yes, it's meant to stabilize your life. But if it ends with you, it stops too soon. You're being entrusted with something bigger than comfort. You're being handed the ability to unlock possibility in others. And that might sound heavy, but it's actually liberating. Because now your success carries meaning. Now the work you've done, the patience, the tears, the years of doing the right thing when no one was watching, it's about to ripple out in ways you didn't expect. Astrologically, Leo is the heart of the zodiac. Not just because of its solar rulership, but because Leo energy radiates. It doesn't hoard. It inspires. And when Leo is aligned, wealth becomes a mirror reflecting confidence, generosity, and creative power into the world. In this season, those born under Leo are being called not just to shine, but to transmit. To carry forward the energy of renewal. Numerologically, we're looking at the power of 9 completion, maturity, the end of a karmic loop. It's not just about closing a chapter. It's about transforming everything you've endured into something useful. Something others can stand on. The kind of wealth that not only feeds your table, but builds the table for others who've never been invited in. This is why you've been through what you've been through. Not to suffer, but to understand. And now, the tools you've earned through pain, patience, and persistence are about to become lifelines for someone else. Whether that looks like building a business that gives others jobs, starting a foundation, funding someone's dream, or simply being present for someone who's been invisible to the world, your wealth is about to become an ecosystem. Even color speaks this truth. Gold is the color of divine inheritance, yes, but in your field, it's also the frequency of mastery. Purple, the royal hue, isn't about arrogance. It's about responsibility. You were born to carry both. With grace. With vision. With a steady hand that doesn't just sign checks, but signs destinies into motion. So if you've ever wondered whether wealth could be spiritual, whether money could heal, not just by this is your answer. Yes, it can. When it's in the hands of someone who sees it not as a crown, but as a compass. If this speaks to you, share it. Write in the comments, I am ready to create life with what I receive. Let that declaration be a seed. Because what you say today could be the reality that breaks ground tomorrow. Stay open. Stay generous. You're not just receiving. You're rebuilding the future, one blessing at a time. By now, you probably feel it in your chest. This wasn't just a video, this was a mirror. A reminder that you didn't need the spotlight to become worthy. You didn't need applause to evolve. And perhaps that's why the light has finally chosen you. Not the artificial kind, but the kind that shows up when your heart is steady, your motives are clean, and your spirit is aligned with something bigger than the moment. What's coming next may not arrive with fireworks. It may show up in the quiet of night. A phone call. An email. A shift in clarity. A door swinging open so silently that you almost miss it, except this time, you're finally present enough to walk through. And when it comes, you won't see it as a reward. You'll feel it as a responsibility. A calling. A sacred trust placed in your hands because you proved you could carry something without letting it crush you. Let's be honest. We live in a world that teaches us to chase validation, to perform, to earn worth through constant motion. But the deeper truth is, you don't need anyone's permission to be wealthy, to be fulfilled, to live in your light. You only need to remember who you've always been, a rightful heir to abundance. Not because you're lucky, but because you are finally in resonance with the version of you that can receive without fear and give without depletion. So let me ask you something. What would you do if this truly is your moment? What would you create, support, build, or rebuild if heaven dropped that financial miracle in your lap tonight? Could you hold it without losing yourself? Could you multiply it without becoming a prisoner to it? Could you carry it in a way that heals not just your life, but the lives of those around you? Take a breath. Sit with that. And if your answer is yes, or even a maybe whispered through hope, then anchor it now. Leave a comment below saying, "I am ready for my financial shift." That's more than a comment. It's a declaration. It's how you move energy. And if you really feel aligned, type 888 to activate the frequency of abundance and right, Leo the first. I'm the chosen light, so our eternal mindfulness family can see you and hold that space with you. Thank you, deeply, for sharing your time, your trust, and your energy with me today. Every like, every comment, every subscribe to this channel expands the reach of these messages and helps bring spiritual clarity to those who need it most. You're not walking this path alone, and you never have been. Stay until the very end. Rewatch this if you need to. And remember, you don't have to chase money. When you're vibrating in alignment, money starts chasing you. Keep shining, Leo. The vault is open, and your name is already written on the door.